All right, so let's look at those three types of problems again, and basically we'll just solve one of each, and that'll kind of be another example. So you have three of each problems you've seen now, and hopefully the only thing that's difficult then after that is just doing the math. So remember, we're going to convert the wording into the um, equations. And so when we do that, our first one says, what number is 150% of the 66? All right, so what does that mean? Well, what number, we're going to convert that into what is x, is, that's equals 150%. Remember, now when we have this, we have to drop the percent, move the decimal 2 to the left, and put it into a decimal form. So that's equal to 1.5 of is times, and then 66. Okay, so these are the easiest ones. All we have to do is multiply those two together. And so if we take 15 times 66, and remember that's a decimal 1.5, 6 times 5 is 30. That's a 9. That's a 30. That's a 9. And so we get 990, move one decimal, and we get x equals 99. Now, does that make sense? Is 150% of 66 going to be 99? Well, that's basically 1.5 times 66, which is what we get, 99. And so that does make sense. Okay. What about the next one here? What we have is 7.7 is what percent of 35? Well, 7.7 is what percent, well, we don't know that, of times 35. Okay, now we just have to solve for x, so we divide by 35. So we divide that by 35, so those cancel. Now we just have to solve, and x equals 7.7 over 35, and what does that equal? Well, 35 goes into 7.7, and we'll go ahead and put out a couple numbers. So, well, 35 times 2 is 70. Subtract that, we get 7. Bring down our first 0. Well, that's another 2. So that's 70. Subtract that, we get 0. So that's 22, and 0.22, I should say. And so this is equal to 0.22. Now that's the decimal form. And they ask, what is the percent form? So to get the percent form, remember, we just move the decimal 2 places to the right and add a percent. And so we get 22% is our answer to that one. And so 22% of 35, so that's going to be a small percentage of 35. Well, a small percentage of 35 is 7.7. So that makes sense logically as far as, we're looking for a small number based on 22% of 35, and that is 77. Okay. And so here's another one like I messed up on, so hopefully we won't mess up this one. And so what we need to do is we need to multiply and get rid of the mixed number and make it a improper fraction. And then when we put it over 100, and then we can simplify from there. So let's first take the 140 times 5. So that's a 0, that's a 20, that's a 700 plus 1. So that's going to give us 701 over 5. That's the key part I forgot last time. And now we can say, okay, well, now let's make that a percent. So 701 over 5 divided by 100. So we drop the percent, put it over 100, and then we have this piece. Now, of what number? Well, of x, okay, is 35.05. All right, so now we've got it into the equation form. Now we need to simplify this improper fraction and division, and then after that we can go from there. So first, I'm going to multiply the denominator by 1 over 100 because that'll cancel. But whatever I do in the numerator, I also have to do in the denominator. So whatever's done in one, I have to do in the other. And so now I just multiply across, and I get 701 over 500 times x equals 35.05. Okay, so that's not too bad. So now what do? Well, we need to get rid of that 701 over 500 on the left. And so how do we do that? Well, we just multiply by the reciprocal. So we multiply by 500 over 701. And we do it on the other side as well. So when we get this side, well, that cancels that, and we get x equals, And now we have to multiply all this out, and then after that we can divide. So let's first take 35.05 and then times 500. Okay, so I'm using the trick where I'm just going to drop those zeros down and multiply. So that's going to be 25, and that's going to be 25 again. That's going to be 15, so that's going to be 17. Now I have two decimals, so boom, 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 I have that. I have the decimal here. And so that gives me 17525 over 701. Okay. Now, what I can do is I can divide this whole thing out. And let's go ahead and do that. And so let's see here. We write it over here. So we'll have 701 into 17525 point, and hopefully we won't need too many zeros. So 700 will go into, okay, so our first position is here. That's 1700, and if we take that times 2, that's going to give us 1402. And so that's going to be a good first start, because we take that times 2, that's going to be 2, 0, and then 14. So 2 minus 2 is 0, 5 minus 0 is 5, 7 minus 4 is 3. That's less than that, so that's as good as it gets. Now bring down our 5. Well, if I notice, if I multiply this by 5, I'll get a 5 here, and 5 times 7 is 35, so this one works out quite nicely. And the fact that it stops right away. And so this says x equals 25. All right. Well, does 140.1% of 25 equal 35.5? So it's almost 1.5 times. 1.5 times is going to get close to that. So that does make sense. Much more sense than when we did the last one and we only had a third of what we should have had. All right. So hopefully that will help you get started on these assignments on the 7.2.